Shocking moment, janitor's daughter speaks Mandarin. Billionaire stops in his tracks. It was a day like any other at Crestwood Academy, a sprawling campus where the elite young minds of the city mingled. The sun blazed in a shocking blue sky, illuminating the manicured lawns and shimmering glass windows of the academy's luxury buildings. Inside, the hum of laughter and chatter filled the hallways, but a strange tension threaded through the air, one that begged a question no one dared to voice. Today would not be just another day. In the back hallway, where the echo of footsteps usually faded into silence, a janitor pushed his cleaning cart. A tattered mop dangled over the edge, dripping murky water onto the gleaming, tile floor. With every shove, the cart shrieked a familiar tune, yet all eyes were on the girl. Maria, the janitor's daughter, with her wild, unruly curls framing a face that seemed far too serious for her 9 years. The students, preening in their designer clothes, had never paid her any mind. Today, though, that would change. As Maria hummed a strange melody, she suddenly turned toward a group of wealthy kids. Her brown eyes sparkled, and without a moment's hesitation, she blurted out a flawless string of Mandarin. The words hung in the air, a beautiful tapestry of sound that sliced through the laughter. Gasps echoed around her. A billionaire, known for his ruthless investment strategies, happened to be passing by. His sharp, tailored suit caught the light, but all he could see was Maria and the shock painted across her face. What followed was electric. The billionaire paused, his jaw tightening. Uncertainty flashed in his eyes, a flicker of recognition, barely perceptible. Students leaned in, teasing whispers carried on the warm air. Was she some kind of prodigy? Or was it something more? Why was this janitor's daughter speaking a language so rarely heard in these halls, a language intricately tied to deals and power? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The room buzzed with confusion and curiosity. Whispers cascaded like a flurry of leaves, and the billionaire stood frozen, an island in a sea of chaos. What did Maria know? Why did the billionaire's icy demeanor crack ever so slightly? The air thickened, anticipation clinging to every breath. Suddenly, the billionaire's phone vibrated loudly on his hip, shattering the spell. He took a step back, eyes darting around as if looking for a way out. The laughter resumed, but now it felt distant, tainted with the lingering question of who this girl was and what this moment meant. As Maria stared at the retreating figure, a mixture of defiance and fear danced in her chest. They would never see her the same way again, would they? But deep down, she knew this was just the beginning. What had she unwittingly unleashed on the world? And would her father ever find out? The hallway dimmed as shadows danced across the walls, a prelude to revelations yet to come. The laughter faded, but the whispers didn't. They coiled around Maria like tendrils of smoke, igniting the air with questions that stung more than the heat. She felt the weight of every gaze, a mixture of awe and disdain. The chatter grew more frantic, wrapping its fingers around her heart, squeezing tightly. Did you hear her? She just spooked Mr. Collins. One girl exclaimed, eyes wide, her voice high-pitched with excitement. They say he's got connections in China, another chimed in, her voice laced with curiosity. What if she's not who we thought? Maria's gut twisted. She tugged at her frayed sleeves, trying to blend back into the background, but it felt impossible now. In that instant, she'd shattered their indifference, and in return, she felt a spark of power mixed with deep-rooted dread. The billionaire, Mr. Collins, had vanished around the corner, leaving behind a whirlwind of unease. What had slipped from her lips so effortlessly? Mandarin words danced from her tongue like they'd been waiting for the right moment to emerge. But why? What did it mean for her and her father, who buried himself in endless nights of work cleaning offices for the very people Maria had so unwittingly drawn in? Her thoughts spiraled, tangled in confusion and excitement. She didn't want to think about the implications of what had happened. Yet, the glow of the fluorescent lights did nothing to illuminate the shadow gathering in her mind. Had she just signed herself up for a brand of trouble she couldn't possibly understand? As the laughter began to crescendo again, Maria turned to leave, desperate to escape the scrutiny. But she bumped into Jess, a girl whose blonde hair sparkled under the lights, and the look in Jess's eyes was a mixture of annoyance and impending realization. "What's your deal?" Jess snapped, arms crossed. "You think you can just talk like that and get away with it? This is Crestwood, not some, whatever you think this is." Maria felt her heart race. She wanted to retaliate, to speak up for herself, but the warmth of boldness disappeared, leaving only the cold fear of what might happen next. "Seriously, Maria, we don't know what you are, or what you're trying to prove," Jess continued, slowly stepping closer until she was practically invading Maria's space. The words dripped with contempt, laced with threats. "You're not one of us. You need to know that." At that moment, Maria caught a glimpse of something reflected in Jess's eyes, something beyond contempt, a hint of fear, maybe? Was it really only contempt, or was there a tremor of vulnerability behind the bravado? Suddenly, a loud booming voice echoed through the hall. "Everyone quiet down." It was Mr. Thompson, the principal, a towering figure who commanded respect. The room stilled, and Maria inhaled deeply, as if expecting the floor to swallow her whole. "After careful consideration, I have an announcement regarding our upcoming international seminar. We have secured a special guest." Tension hung thick in the air, and Maria's skin prickled. What if this was about her? What if the billionaire wanted to speak with her again? The principal continued, but the words blurred together. She suddenly felt dizzy, snippets of conversations swirling in her mind. As the ceremony rattled on, Maria stole stares at the students around her. Their expressions were mixed, some intrigued, others calculating. Boys whispered to each other, and groups huddled close as if plotting something. "Who does she think she is?" Jess muttered under her breath, glancing back at Maria, eyes flicking with barely concealed animosity. Deep inside, a newfound resolve flickered. This could be her chance. Her chance to explore who she really was, to find her place in a world that had never opened its arms to her. But before she could form a plan, the doors to the hall burst open. All heads turned, gasps igniting the air once more. And then Maria saw him, the billionaire, Mr. Collins, flanked by two well-dressed associates, striding toward the front with purpose. "Is he here for me?" The thought gripped her tightly, heat flushing her cheeks. Determined, Maria stepped forward, her heart pounding as she faced the unfolding chaos. The moment felt electric, full of possibility yet heavy with uncertainty. What was more frightening, the attention of the elite or the truths she might discover about herself? But before she could find her answer, a voice rang out, interrupting her thoughts. "Mr. Collins, is it true you're planning to invest in educational programs?" As questions flew, Maria stood at the edge of the crowd, feeling something shift within her. This was just the beginning, she knew, but the real question loomed large: what kind of future was waiting for her on the other side of this moment? The murmurs that filled the hall swirled like a tempest, each voice pulled into the orbit of Mr. Collins and the drama unfolding before them. The billionaire paused, his gaze sweeping the room, and in that heartbeat, the air thickened with anticipation. Maria felt every prickle of sweat on her skin, every heartbeat echoing louder than the last. Then, like a lightning bolt igniting the darkness, Mr. Collins' eyes landed on her. Whatever casual smile had graced his lips moments before vanished, replaced by an intense, searching look. Maria's pulse thudded in her ears. Why was he staring at her? Did he remember her? "Miss." His voice cut through the noise, deep and commanding, drawing the attention of everyone in the room like moths to a flame. All eyes fell on Maria, the weight of their expectations heavier than before. She could feel her heart in her throat as she stepped forward. "Maria," she managed to reply, her voice barely rising above a whisper. "Maria," he echoed, as if tasting her name, capturing it with a deftness that sent chills down her spine. "You spoke Mandarin?" The words hung in the air, charged with a kind of electricity that sent a ripple through the audience. She recalled the astonishment that had lit up the faces surrounding her moments before, now replaced with a mix of intrigue and suspicion. "Maria." Jess's voice shot through the silence, sharp and cruel. "What makes you think you can just waltz in here like that? You're just enough." Mr. Collins interrupted, his tone slicing through the tension. He turned back to Maria, expression now serious. "Where did you learn it?" The question pulled her from her spiral of anxiety. Something in his demeanor shifted, the billionaire wanted answers, and suddenly, her voice reclaimed its strength. It's something my father taught me. He spends years working for people from around the world," she replied, her conviction growing as she pieced the sentences together. A flicker of understanding crossed Mr. Collins' face. "Your father works in the city? Is that right?" "Yes, sir," she said, finding her footing amidst the uncertainty. "He works hard, cleaning offices." A flash of empathy flickered in Collins' eyes before it was masked by a calculated neutrality. The crowd hung on his every word. "It seems there is more to you than meets the eye, Maria." For a moment, time froze. And in that stillness, Maria saw the flicker of something beyond his business interests. Curiosity, maybe? Or perhaps it was something darker. As murmurs began once more, Maria noticed Jess sharpening her elbows, preparing to thrust herself forward in a bid for attention she believed was rightfully hers. "Look at her, Mr. Collins. She doesn't belong here." But Collins held up a hand, silencing Jess with the weight of his authority. "On the contrary, Jess. I think she's just getting started." With those words, a rush of defiance surged within Maria. The crowd's skepticism did nothing more than fuel her newfound resolve. But as the principal signaled to Mr. Collins to continue, Maria felt a drift pulling at her attention, a cold fear settling in her bones. Could this moment lead her to a world unseen, or would it entrap her deeper among the elite she'd inadvertently invaded? As Mr. Collins began discussing plans for the international seminar, the words became a distant hum, her thoughts racing ahead to an unknown future. Each fleeting glance came laden with expectations, whispers, and hidden agendas. What doors would be opened with this unexpected connection? But even more troubling, what consequences lurked behind them? Staring into that crowded hall where feeling and ambition thrummed wildly, Maria's heart hammered. This was just the beginning, she realized, and the comfort in her father's teachings felt like a faint signal in an oncoming storm. Would she embrace this unexpected journey, or would she let fear dictate her choices? Before she could weigh her options, a phone buzzed sharply, a text alert. The vibration jolted her from her thoughts. She glanced down, the screen lighting up with a single chilling word. "Help." An icy shiver ran down her spine. Help? Who needed help, and why did it feel like the ground was shifting beneath her feet? The invitation to dive deeper into this mystery wrapped around her heart, pushing her into the unknown. What lay ahead? An ally, a betrayal, or something altogether more dangerous? The buzz of anticipation in the room felt like static electricity, charged and waiting to unleash. Maria's breath quickened, her thoughts were already tumbling through the possible meanings of that one anguished word on the screen. Help. Her heart raced as a wave of uncertainty crashed over her. Who needed help? The room around her, once just a gathering of ambitious elites, transformed into a suffocating trap. Chaos danced at the periphery of her mind. The gaze of everyone pinned her in place, but she suddenly felt far outside of it all. With one last concentrated breath, she focused on Mr. Collins, who seemed caught between his scripted speech and something he found inherently fascinating in her. He mentioned a seminar and international connections, lofty dreams echoing off the gilded walls, but they blurred into background noise. She had to find out who sent that text. "Miss Maria," Collins said again, snapping her from her reverie. "You've mentioned your father. Tell us about his work. We want to hear more." His voice was smooth, almost magnetic, but she detected an edge to it. Perhaps it was the pressure in the room. It pressed against her, demanding something she wasn't sure she could give. Clearing her throat, she thought of her father's stories about the city, how hard he worked to provide for their family. "He cleans offices during the day, but he also teaches me about different cultures and languages," she said, vaguely aware of the ripple in the crowd. A murmur of respect flickered among the attendees. Was it respect, or a simple acknowledgement? Just as she felt herself gaining a foothold, Jess interjected sharply, wrapping her voice around the word "but," as if it were a noose. What could a janitor's daughter possibly know about? But Collins raised his hand again, silencing her with a fierce look. Maria felt the breath she didn't know she was holding compress in her chest. "Your background doesn't define your potential, Jess," Collins replied, his eyes never leaving Maria. "Perhaps, Maria could teach us something valuable." With those words, a mix of anger and validation surged through her. This was her chance to reclaim the narrative, not merely to stand idly by as Jess attempted to ridicule her, but as all eyes remained locked on her, that strange thrill of possibility turned into dread. The text buzzed ominously still in her mind. "Help." She glanced back down at her phone, her pulse stuttering at the thought of who might be in danger. Did her father know something, or was this connected to someone else entirely? The moment a familiar name crossed her thoughts, she felt the heat of realization. Marco had always been an odd presence in her life, always talking about strange things happening in the shadows, his hushed fears of the city's underground. He'd shared stories of connections with people who operated outside the realm of legality. Had he gotten himself into trouble? "Maria." Collins' tone sharpened, pulling her focus back to him. "Your father's lessons. What do you think your role is in all this? How can you connect with our world?" It felt absurd to think her mundane upbringing could bridge the gap from cleaning floors to mingling with the elite. Yet something deep in her stirred, fueled partially by the bubbling fear of Marco's unknown plight. Leaning into the uncertainty, she replied, I think everyone has a story that matters. Maybe I can share mine." As her voice rose, fueled by urgency, the energy of the room shifted. Something intangible danced among her audience, whispers colliding with the walls. But just as confidence surged within her, the ultimate test of her conviction loomed. Could she dive deeper into this world and investigate the secrets promising danger? But before she could grasp what to do next, another buzz of her phone shattered her focus. A second message, "Kids," vibrating through her pulse, "they're looking for you." The chill creeping back and gripped her like ice. Who were they? And what did they want with her? Fear was no longer just a background emotion, it coiled around her heart, squeezing tight. The stakes were rising, leaving her teetering between the incredible opportunity laid out before her and the terrifying unknown of the world she was stepping into. Would she risk it all to find the truth behind the chilling messages, or would she step back, allowing fear to govern her journey in this unforgiving elite landscape? As the murmurs surged around her, the tension thickening, Maria knew she had to choose, and quickly. But which path would lead to salvation, and which could spell disaster? Maria's mind raced as the words "they're looking for you" pulsed through her. The crowd around her faded into a blur, their whispers and glances becoming muffled echoes in a rising tide of panic. She felt like a tightrope walker caught in a gale. The stakes were higher than she had ever imagined. "Maria." Collins' voice cut through the fog, sharper now, commanding. "I believe every voice deserves to be heard, even the most unexpected ones. What do you hope to accomplish here today?" His gaze now felt like a spotlight, exposing her inner turmoil. She had wanted to speak boldly, to share her truth and stand firm against Jess's jab. Yet, Marco's dangerous reality clawed at her mind, sending icy fingers of dread racing down her spine. What if she found herself in a situation she couldn't control? Maria stammered, the room morphing into a weighty pressure pressing against her ribs. Suddenly, the mood shifted violently. The double doors at the back of the room slammed open, sending a shock of silence through the crowd. All heads turned, the full attention of the room pivoting toward the intruder. A tall figure stepped through, a man wearing a tailored dark suit, slick hair, and an intensity in his gaze that could slice through the tension. Maria's heart lunged. It was Marco's older brother, David, known for his connections to the city's underground. A chill ran up her spine. She had only seen him a couple of times, but his reputation loomed large. "David," Collins said, his tone mixing surprise with irritation. "This is a closed event." Ignoring Collins, David scanned the crowd until his eyes landed on Maria. He motioned sharply for her to come forward. "I need to talk to you. Now." The air grew thick with disbelief and astonishment. Maria stood frozen in place, panic swirling in her stomach. What did David want? The room hummed with low whispers, intrigue sparking behind closed lips. She felt exposed, the weight of their expectations heavy on her. "Maria," David insisted, his voice low but urgent. "They're closer than you think. We don't have time." Before she could process, Collins interrupted, "This isn't how we handle things here." He stepped forward, arm extended defensively, as if to protect her from this unexpected disruption. But all she felt was the tightening grasp of urgency. "Please, I can't explain here," David pressed. "Your father, he's in danger, and so are you. They know what you're trying to do." A gasp rippled through the audience. The words landed like a stone, creating a shockwave of concern and agitation. Maria's breath quickened. "What do you mean?" "Just trust me," he said, glancing around cautiously. "Please. I swear it's serious." A suffocating fog of fear and adrenaline filled her veins. Maria knew the crowd was watching, their judgments and assumptions layered over her like a shroud. Should she stand up and fight against this chaos, or should she follow David into the unknown? Collins cleared his throat, visibly trying to regain control. "This isn't how we conduct ourselves. Can't you see this disruption could tarnish your reputation?" But a sudden clarity struck her amidst the impending chaos. Her father had worked tirelessly, teaching her the stories of people, but this moment was her story to reclaim. With fleeting glances around the room, she sensed the weight of all those eyes locked onto her next move. "Let me go," she said, summoning a newfound strength. "Let me make my choice." The tension crackled in the air, thick and electric. Maria took a deep breath and stepped toward David, daring to break the invisible barrier she had felt all evening. The murmurs escalated, growing louder behind her, but she didn't look back. As she exited the room, her heart pounding in rhythm with her footsteps, she knew she was leaving behind a world of privilege and stepping into a realm of danger. But would the risks lead her to uncover the truth about Marco, or plunge her deeper into darkness? Outside, the night felt alive, pulsating with possibilities. In the shadows, she could almost feel the threat lurking, waiting for her to stumble. But what would she uncover next? The chill of the night air enveloped Maria as she stepped outside, the murmurs of the gathering fading behind her. Her mind was spinning, thoughts crashing like waves against a rocky shore. David motioned for her to follow, leading her away from the bright lights of the building and deeper into the shadows of the alley. Every step felt heavy, filled with uncertainty. What danger loomed? The ominous "they're looking for you" echoed in her mind, wrapping around her like a vice. David walked swiftly, glancing over his shoulder as if the walls had ears. Had he picked up on her thoughts, her fears? "Wait," she urged, breathless. "You need to tell me what's going on. Why is my father in danger?" David paused, turning to face her, urgency written all over his features. If we stand here talking, we're sitting ducks. Move. She stumbled after him, shadows flickering in the dim light from the street lamps above. What do you mean they? Who's after us? Trust me, he said, his voice low and serious. I can't explain everything now. The fewer people who know about it, the better. Her mind raced. Trust? It felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. David was part of that dangerous world she barely understood, a world where lives were traded like chess pieces. Aren't you part of that world too? She shot back, indignation flaring. Why should I follow you? Because I'm more invested in keeping you alive than they are, he replied sharply. That should tell you something. The air thickened, tension clinging to their surroundings. They turned the corner and hustled down another alley, lit only by the flickering of a distant neon sign. The chill was deeper here, more foreboding. Your father, David continued, attempting to regain control of the conversation, he's been investigating some powerful people. People who don't like to be investigated. A rush of fear flooded her chest. What do you mean? He's just a journalist. He's careful. That doesn't matter to them. Careful doesn't equal safe. They consider him a threat, and threats don't always get to see tomorrow. Maria felt as if the ground beneath her was collapsing. So what do we do? Get out of the city for now. Lay low until this blows over. A noise echoed from behind them, footsteps approaching. Maria's heart dropped into her stomach. She turned to look, but the shadows concealed everything. David grabbed her arm. Keep moving. Don't look back. The footsteps quickened, then vanished. Was it paranoia, or were they being followed? The question buzzed nervously in her mind, an electrical charge that made her skin prickle. Where are we going? She asked, desperation creeping into her voice. To a safe house a few blocks away. It's not much, but it's better than out here in the open. As they sped down the alley, the thrill of fear and adrenaline coursed through Maria. She had always dreamed of being part of something bigger, but this was beyond what she imagined. She could be plunging into a storm, where secrets were currency, and betrayal lurked around every corner. Finally, David stopped in front of an unmarked door, rapping the code quickly 3 taps, a pause, then 2. The door creaked open, and Maria felt the tension release just slightly. Get inside. David urged. As Maria stepped over the threshold, the heavy door shut behind her, sealing away the familiar dangers of the outside. Yet in that moment, a different kind of fear loomed inside her. What awaited her in this new world? David took a deep breath, scanning the room. We need to figure out what they know, and then we can decide our next step. But something sharp and unsettling pricked at Maria's mind. The feeling that all of this her father, Marco, David was just the tip of an impending iceberg. Hidden truths threatened to surface, and she had to uncover them before it was too late. What awaited them in their search for answers? What stinging revelations would shatter her world even more? The room was dimly lit, casting eerie shadows against the cracked walls. A single bulb flickered above, and Maria's heart raced as she took in the surroundings. Was this really a safe house? It felt more like a cage. Her instincts screamed that they were still in imminent danger, even behind bolted doors. David, what exactly are we getting into? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She could feel the weight of the uncertainty pressing down on her. David glanced around, the tension not leaving his expression. We need to locate the files your father was working on. That's our best chance at finding out who's after him, and why. Files. The thought sent her spinning. You think my dad's files are here? No, he said. But they could lead us to someone who knows. We have to get to his contacts. Like who? Everyone in his world. And how do we do that without attracting attention? David just stared at her, the urgency in his eyes clearly demonstrating that he didn't have all the answers. "First, we need to get to my contact. From there, we can figure out the next step." The door creaked open, and an old man peeked his head in. He looked oddly calm, as if this was just a regular night for him. "David, you know it's not safe to linger. Are you sure about bringing her here?" David glanced at Maria, an unspoken reassurance passing between them. "It's the only option we have," he replied firmly. "Do you have the car?" "Yes. But you'd better move fast. They've been asking questions." "What's her name?" "Maria," she answered cautiously, trying to read the man's expression. "Stay close to him, Maria. This is a dangerous game." Maria nodded, but her mind raced. This was it. She was drowning in uncertainty, pulled under by the currents of secrets too deep for her to understand. She felt invisible eyes watching her, the unseen whispers of danger wrapping tighter around her. David stepped out first, motioning her to follow. As they hurried through the narrow corridors of the building, Maria's senses heightened. Every creaking floorboard, every distant sound felt loaded with meaning. When they stepped into the cool night air again, the hustle of the city hit her like a wave. But the chaos outside was nothing compared to the turmoil inside her mind. "Which way?" she asked, trying to keep the fear from her voice. "Left," David said sharply. "We'll take the back streets. It's safer." They walked briskly, weaving through alleys lit by flickering overhead lights. The shadows danced around them, blurring figures that moved too swiftly to identify. Maria's heart thundered in her chest. What if we're being followed? David turned to her, his eyes flashing with intensity. Then we're prepared. Just stick close and keep your mouth shut. Prepared? Maria echoed. What does that even mean? Before David could answer, a figure lunged from the shadows and grabbed her wrist. Panic exploded in Maria's chest as she was yanked forward. David! She screamed. He whirled around, fists clenched, eyes narrowing into the darkness. Get off her! He shouted, stepping toward the figure. The air crackled with tension as another silhouette emerged, blocking their escape. Maria's breathing quickened. She was trapped, caught in a web she didn't understand. As the two figures moved closer, the urgency of David's presence pressed against her chest, mingling with sheer terror. This is going to end badly for you, one of the men grunted, a twisted smile creeping onto his face. Everything in her screamed for her to fight, to push back against the fear. Yet, at that moment, what terrified her most was not knowing what would come next. Was her father's life hanging by a thread, just as hers was now? Run! David shouted, jerking her back. An instinct, a command, and in that breathless second, she had to decide, to run or to confront the unknown. Would she trust the man beside her, or would she fight her way to the truth, even if it meant unraveling a deeper darkness? As she hesitated, time stretched thick in the air, the shadows closing in. A decision had to be made. Would she break free, or would it break her? What awaited them in the clash that loomed closer with every heartbeat? Maria's instinct kicked in. She yanked her arm free and spun away from the grasp of the shadowy figure. David was already moving, his hands forming fists as he darted toward the closest escape route. The panic within her morphed into a racing determination. They had to get out. She felt the cold night air slap against her skin as they dashed into the narrowest alley, their footsteps echoing against the damp brick walls. This way! David shouted, pulling her toward a door tucked into the shadows. It looked neglected, but they didn't have the time to deliberate. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit storage room filled with rusted tools and dusty crates. The smell of mildew hung heavy in the air. David pushed her inside first, then followed, shutting the door just as the alley echoed with the shouts of their pursuers. Darkness engulfed them, and Maria's heart raced, pounding so loudly she feared it might give them away. Shoo! David whispered urgently, pressing his finger to his lips. He flicked his phone's flashlight on, illuminating just enough for them to see each other's faces. His was pale and set, while hers reflected both fear and resolve. "They're not far behind," he said, glancing at the door. "We need to find a way out." Maria nodded, desperate to push down the fear clawing at her throat. "What do we do if they find us?" David's jaw clenched. "We fight. We can't let them take us or find out what we're looking for." "Right." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. They scanned the room, eyes darting over every inch until David pointed at a window high above the ground. "Can you climb?" "Climb? Are you kidding? I'm not a monkey." The laughter startled even her, breaking through the suffocating tension between them. "Just follow my lead," he said, casting a short glance back at the door. The urgency in his voice snapped her focus back. "Okay, fine. But you'll go first," she insisted, her heart racing not just from fear but the thrill of action. David climbed onto a forgotten crate, then hoisted himself towards the window. He grunted with the effort as he pulled himself up, almost out of sight. She held her breath, praying the wood wouldn't creak. "Come on, Maria," he urged, his voice muted by the gloom. Maria scrambled onto the crate and grasped David's outstretched hand. As she pulled herself up, adrenaline surged through her veins. They were so close to escape. Then the door burst open, and two figures rushed in, lanterns swinging wildly. "They went this way," one of them shouted. The beam of light split the darkness, illuminating David's panicked face. "Now!" David yelled, lifting her higher. With a surge of determination, Maria shoved herself through the window frame, feeling the cool night air rush around her. She landed on the gravel below with a thud, pain shooting up her leg. She winced but didn't falter. David jumped right after her. "Run!" he barked, his expression fierce as he led the way through the chaotic streets. As they sprinted, the adrenaline pumping through her made her forget the pain. They ducked behind buildings and slipped into unnoticed corners. Breathless, Maria felt alive. This was unlike anything she had experienced, but there was no time for reevaluation. With every step, the distance grew between them and the chaos they had escaped. But she could feel the danger lurking just out of sight, waiting for the moment they would falter. "Where are we going?" Maria demanded, the fear creeping back into her voice. "To meet my contact," David replied, glancing around, aware of every sound. He won TB far, and he knows what to do. Just when relief flickered at the edges of her mind, a voice echoed behind them. "You think you can run forever?" Maria's stomach dropped as they froze, the men they had escaped back in the alley now moving toward them, determination radiating from their shadows. Time snapped like a taut wire, leaving her with one brutal truth: in this dangerous game, running was only the start. They had come too far to turn back now. As Maria and David resumed their flight, she wondered what awaited them at the Contact's hideout. Would they find the answers or just lead deeper into the darkness? They dashed through the dimly lit streets, weaving in and out of shadows. Maria's heart pounded in her ears, drowning out the shouts of pursuit. David's hand gripped hers tightly, pulling her onward. Her breath came in quick gasps, the cool air burning her lungs. "David, where is this contact of yours?" She struggled to keep the panic from her voice. "Just a few more blocks," he promised, glancing back. "We'll be safe there." But were they really safe? Her instincts screamed at her that they were still being hunted. Each footfall echoed like a countdown in her head. They needed to lose these men, but with every second, they seemed to get closer. The streetlights flickered above them, a bad sign. Suddenly, David veered left into an alley, dragging her along. The narrow path was choked with trash and the stench of decay. They came to a halt, pressing against the cool brick wall. Maria held her breath, focusing on every sound. She could hear them, a low murmur punctuated by the clattering of boot heels. "Do you see anything?" David breathed, squinting into the darkness. She shook her head, her heart racing so fast she thought it might burst. Then, without warning, a dog barked nearby, its voice sharp and startling. "Shoo!" she hissed, hoping it wouldn't draw attention. David's sharp focus returned, and he pulled out his phone, squinting at the screen. "The contact's right around the corner," he whispered. "We just need to." Before he could finish, a figure materialized at the end of the alley, silhouetted against the muted glow of streetlights. Maria's pulse quickened. The person was taller, with a thin build, his face obscured by shadows. She and David instinctively sunk deeper into the darkness. "What do we do?" Maria whispered, panic lacing her voice. She felt like a prey caught in a hunter's trap. "Wait," David replied, his eyes fixed on the figure approaching. "Maybe he's not one of them." But just as the man stepped closer, a sound pierced the tension, a scream echoed from the main street above. Maria jumped, her heart racing. Was it another victim? Or was it one of their pursuers? The figure cursed softly, "Damn it, keep it down." The voice was low, gravelly and eerily familiar. "Who is he?" she asked, though dread filled her mind. Could he be someone connected to the ones chasing them? "I can't tell," David murmured, but before he could finish, the shadowy figure broke into a jog toward the chaos coming from the main street. "Let's make a run for it," she urged, her instinct kicking in again. They crept out of the alley and emerged into a wider street. The cool air was thick with uncertainty. The distant sounds of chaos turned their blood cold. David's grip tightened on her hand as they began to sprint again, dodging past panicked figures darting in all directions. "Where's your contact?" Maria yelled, trying to keep the fear out of her voice. "I've got a safe house," David replied, determination edging his words. "Just a bit further. Trust me." They rounded a corner, and her legs burned beneath her. Suddenly, David stopped, pulling her back. "Wait." "What?" Maria gasped, her chest heaving. That he pointed down the road. The shadowy figures from the alley were regrouping, their eyes scanning frantically. "They're closing in. We can't let them see us." They ducked into another alley, heartbeats racing. But as they caught their breath, Maria couldn't shake the feeling that they were running into an inescapable trap. "David," she started, but he pressed his finger to his lips, capturing her attention. A sudden sound, a scuffle of footsteps approaching from the other side of the alley. Fear clawed at her throat, and they moved deeper into the shadows, silent and still. Maria felt a knot in her stomach as the footsteps grew louder. She glanced at David, whose expression shifted from focus to grim. "We need to go, now." As they prepared to slip past the corner, a loud crash erupted near their hiding place. The two of them froze, exposed, with nowhere to run. In that moment of stillness, the world felt suspended, and Maria knew they were both acutely aware of one thing. Their time was running out. What had begun as a desperate flight from danger was now a gripping race against a fate they couldn't foresee. Could they outrun the men who wanted them? And if they made it to the contact, could he truly help them? "Are you ready?" David whispered, his voice steady against the chaos. Maria looked into his eyes, the unspoken question hanging heavily between them. Would facing whatever awaited outside lead to survival or a deeper plunge into the unknown? Just beyond the alley entrance, the shadows writhed in uncertainty as Maria and David crouched, their hearts drumming like war drums against the pounding of fear. In that instant, she remembered her father's teachings. The art of survival, it seemed, was not merely in avoiding danger but confronting it head-on. "Ready as I'll ever be," Maria replied, her voice a low whisper. She took a deep breath, steeling herself against the chaos that awaited. They shared a glance, a moment of unspoken understanding, and with one swift motion, David took her hand, and they bolted from their hiding spot. The world outside was a chaotic blur of flashing lights, frantic movements, and echoes of frightened voices. It felt like a swirling cyclone. Rushing figures darted past them, some familiar yet foreign. The city had transformed from a backdrop of privilege to a battleground of desperate survival. "Stay close," David urged, his grip firm as they weaved through the thrumming streets. They crossed through alleys and side roads, and the gnawing sensation of being followed clung tightly to Maria's insides. "Where is this safe house?" she questioned, each footfall pounding against her growing anxiety. She could sense danger lurking, just out of sight, ready to pounce. "Just past the park," David assured her. "It's equipped for situations like this." They sprinted towards the park, the weight of every heartbeat echoing loud. As they approached, they slowed, scanning the dark silhouettes of trees, seeking the safe haven hidden among the branches. "There." David pointed toward a rundown shed obscured by wild foliage. Hope surged in Maria as they dashed toward it. Suddenly, a shout pierced through the night, a deep, angry voice marked with authority. "Stop! You want to escape." The threat hung in the air, heavy and laden with suspicion. Fear shot through her, sharp and immediate. "Run!" David commanded, and they dove into the shed just as footsteps thundered behind them. Inside, the darkness closed around them, but they were not alone. A flicker of light illuminated a figure, a wiry old man, his face shadowed yet defined with age and grit. "David! What the hell are you doing here?" The man's voice cracked, feigned nonchalance cutting through his nervousness. "Can't explain now, Luke," David replied, urgency steeping his tone, glancing toward the entrance as fear clutched their throats. "We need to hide quick." Maria's heart raced as David yanked her behind a stack of crates, panic flooding her. "I didn't know you were in town. Is it true what they're saying?" The boy Luke hesitated, his eyes briefly flicking to Maria. "Is she involved?" "Can't explain here." David hissed again, face taut with tension. "They're looking for her." Maria's breath caught. They were looking for her. The weight of their pursuit crashed upon her, drowning her in quicksand. "Shoo!" Luke interjected, leaning closer, urgency etched on his lined face. "We need to figure out what you're tangled in before they catch wind of it here." "Your father, is he safe?" "I don't know," Maria whispered, trembling slightly. "He might be in danger, too." David said she suddenly needed to know the gravity of the mess they were in sank deeper. "What does it mean that they're looking for me?" "They want to silence you," Luke said, voice grave. "They can't have a loose end. Your father's snooping has led them to you." The tension in the small shed became suffocating. "What should we do?" Maria's voice cracked, fear mingling with resolve. "I can't just hide. I need to find my dad." A glimmer of determination surged through David. "If we can piece this together, learn what they want, where they are, it might lead us to him." "Then we need to move quickly," Maria insisted, the warmth of hope clashing against the chill of dread. "Let us find the truth." Just then, the sound of boots pounded outside the shed. The door rattled violently on its hinges. The three of them froze, hearts racing in synchrony. The air grew thick with anticipation. They could either succumb to fear or rise to meet their fate. "Remember," Luke whispered, pulling a worn metal object from his pocket, "some truths are best hidden. If they come in, we fight. But only as a last resort." Maria nodded, adrenaline surging, her heart pounding not just with fear, but now with fierce determination. "We're going to get my father back," she declared. "And we're going to protect him from whatever this is." Her spirit ignited with purpose. Their eyes met in the dim light. Daniel's unwavering gaze echoed an unspoken promise. Together, they would navigate this darkness, together, they would uncover the truth. Just then, the door burst open. David's eyes widened, ready to confront the threat. The room stilled momentarily, and Maria braced herself for whatever came next. This was their moment. No turning back now. But before they could act, they found themselves face to face with a familiar figure, cloaked in shadow yet unmistakably present. Marco's brother stepped into the bright light, but this time, his eyes burned with a purpose that bore witness to danger. "Get ready," he warned, stepping through the threshold, a frantic determination layered in his voice. "They're here. We have to move now." With adrenaline surging through her veins and fear receding, Maria felt that spark of destiny. It was time to confront whatever awaited them and step into a future molded by courage. The night was no longer just dark, it was alive with possibilities, a turning point in the story that was hers to claim, and she intended to see it through. The fight was far from over, and with her newfound allies, the shadows would no longer hold her captive. Together, they would battle against the abyss. As they prepared to face the unknown, Maria realized this journey was not merely about survival, it was about stepping into her power, forging her path, and embracing the truth of her own story. The chilling echoes of danger lurked close, but each heartbeat became an anthem for the fight ahead. They were ready. And as the shadows closed in on them, Maria felt an undeniable certainty this was the moment where everything changed. Now, more than ever, it was time to take back their lives. So if you're ready for the next chapter of Maria's journey, hit that subscribe button, smash the like button now to keep us going strong, and flood the comments section with your theories about what happens next. Don't wait another second, share this story with 5 friends who need to witness this explosive conclusion.